consumers, especially young consumers, a way to feel like, oh, this is a good retailer, right? That's number one. Number two, over time, you can, which we endorse. We have about 1,200 members. More than half of them are, in fact, from the middle of the supply chain, the supply side. And it's a good way to say, for example, like we do, that we source from RJC members. So you've got two ways through RJC to talk about it to your consumers. We have to do a better job of providing retailers with the information that I'm talking about, and that's something that we're working on. But that's a way. Now, RJC is a big step for some companies, but there's other organizations like AGS and Jewelers of America. Understood. But you know, if you're a member of AGS or a member of JA, at least you're learning about what's ethical, what's what's responsible sourcing. If you want to take a larger step, join the RJC. So there are organizations that can help you learn about it, and there are also organizations in place that can give the consumers the confidence that they're looking for. I hope that's helpful.
I think we have to go to product centricity. RJC says, you're a good guy. I'm buying this ring. What's the story? Because I don't trust all these good guys. I want to go with the product. Then you'll get a halo effect. Say, oh, get your product, you know. I was going to Mike Wilson so that I can record the stuff. But that would make that's the second level. My product, my ring has got this certificate or document. And I think that we're going to try, is this on? It says, ba-ba-da-ba-da. Yeah. So, like, if the product has some kind of certificate with it, that might do the trick. And
the certificate has to come from somebody who's not us.
That's right. We're going to work on, we're going to work on source certification. The problem is that it's not enough to know the mine, although it's a beginning. You need to know who actually cut it. Where the diamond's manufactured in a place that has ventilation for the air so that there's no diamond dust in the air. Were the people treated properly? Now, RGC does have standards as well, which we can use to apply those standards. But I think what the industry needs to do is to go to the product level, to actually say, this ring, this GIA certified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it could be IIDGI certified, or it could be some other certification. But the problem that we have is that we need to identify the product. So with Melee, for example, it's a lot more complicated. But we have low-hanging fruit. We have diamond engagement rings. We have grading reports for those diamond engagement rings. The grading report would very well identify the specific diamond. It's got an inclusion here. It's got a laser inscription there. It's got the measurements of the syringe. So you can, I think a gemologist or someone like, you know, they own a jewelry store, you should be able to look at a diamond and say, this diamond matches this grading report, right? Sure. Fine. And then all we have to do is we have to hang a source certification or an ethical certificate onto the grading report.
But then how does that apply to your I was just in your thing earlier. How does that apply to your now new initiative with recycled diamonds? Yeah. Okay, we bought it from Grandma in Boca Raton, but you know, Grandpa bought it in 1973 from some guy. Where'd it come from in '73?
We don't know. And
I
think that there's going to be a question about grandfathering, or how are we going to deal with recycled diamonds or recycled jewelry? And we have to. I don't think anyone can come along and say, oh, you don't know where the diamond came from, and maybe it did come from a bad place because grandfather brought it, who knows what was happening. So I think that's one of our challenges, is going to say, okay, this is recycled. Like, for example, there's recycled paper. But maybe that paper came from a rainforest. Right. We don't know. But we know where we are today. So I think that there's a discussion that has to take place as to the legitimization of recycled, what is recycled, what isn't recycled, what are the standards for recycled. And you have all these different organizations like RJC, OECD. I mean, there was discussions about recycled, right? So we need to define recycled in an honest way. And the other thing is, no matter what we do, just tell the truth with extreme transparency. Even synthetic diamonds. If you tell people the whole story, okay, so that's fine. So I'm thinking that recycled does have that thing. But you mentioned something else about, I want to show my friends.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say to you that branding is going to become the #1 issue for the diamond industry in the next 10 years. It already is. But even more. Why? I think most diamonds are generic still. Okay, yeah. Tell us, Queenie.
No, I did not know. No, I didn't have anything to say. I didn't know branding was important yet. Tell me what, I would love to hear more about.
I mean, look what Tiffany's doing.
Everyone's gonna brand
Because
diamond.
when you buy the product, you're buying the trust in the product because of who's selling it to you as well. Now, I don't know that Tiffany is giving you a certificate for each diamond ring that you buy, where it came from. Did this mine here? Is it mined there? I don't think so. So they just lay it onto their brand, and people trust Tiffany, and they may not trust you, and that becomes the big problem of I trust big companies, I don't trust little companies. Let's get rid of all the little people, which is what I brought up in the talk. So I think doing the product is one thing, but the other thing is the brand. And I think we need to brand ourselves. We need to brand what we're selling. We need to think about how a brand is a promise to the customer. That's all it is. And if we can think about how we brand this idea of these diamonds being socially responsible, that's key. And then we may even get fair trade diamond. I was talking to the guy that buys all the coffee for Starbucks. An interesting guy. It was a couple of years ago. And he said to me that only about, I think, 5% or 7% of what they buy is actually fair trade, because the fair trade organizations are corrupt, but they're just trying to milk everybody. But he applies the same standard so he gets a huge halo of. He's about 50% of our coffee comes with these standards. Now maybe we'll get, God bless the bears, we're going to get, fair trade diamonds, real fair trade diamonds, which are different than ethical diamonds because they actually help the communities where they come from. But there's a lot of discussion about that, but that'll give a halo effect. So anyways, back to your point, which is so good. People want to show their friends. I bought this at Tiffany, which means don't worry about it. It's got a great thing. Now, Tiffany then markets that. It says a key aspect of the quality of a Tiffany piece of jewelry isn't just the blue box, it's the source of the material. So I don't know to what degree we can establish, brands that transcend, I think like hallmarks. A hallmark is like 100% wool or something like that, where everybody gets onto that, and then you have your brand, but it's a hallmark that you know that it's okay. Like the forestry, I think, or the fisheries. So maybe that's where we need to go with the diamond business, to have that more thing. But I think what you're saying is, so what have we learned so far? Number one is educate, talk to your suppliers, think about standards. RJC says, we've got standards. I'm saying, well, that's nice that you have standards. They're very, long and big and complicated. How do we bring them into the real world? And this gentleman says, I got 2 issues. First issue, they don't trust me. Second issue, they want to show their friends, so we need some kind of tagging or some kind of a branding or something, hallmarking, that's going to raise the issue there. So I think we got the first 5 minutes. Go ahead, yeah, please.
I think one of the problems is the price. And it's like you go to the farmer's market and you're feeling all great and you're like, oh, I want to buy these strawberries, and they're $7, and then you go to Aldi and buy them for 99 cents. And it's just like everyone wants an eco-green carbon lab factory microwave diamond now that they're cheaper, but they didn't want them when they were more expensive. They were still saving the planet then, but nobody wanted them. Now that they're cheaper, people want them. And it's so hypocritical because people want to save the planet before it costs them $1 more. And I sold Canadian diamonds on the road for 5 years, and they were 3 cents more than my other diamonds, and nobody would buy them from me. And I think we can combat this, though. We need to say that, oh, look at this ring is, ethical and all that, but it's actually cheaper because it's fair trade gold, which means they're a smaller mine and they didn't have to bribe everybody, and they save money by not bribing people, and they save money on regulations. And so it's eco, but it's not as expensive because right now the jewelers aren't buying the green fair trade gold stuff because they think it's more expensive. And then and I think in a lot of the customers, they pretend like they want to, but I don't know. I would love you to address that.
I will comment on the Canadian diamond thing. As a retailer, we have 2 sets of diamond earrings. Canadian certified diamonds, in which it says sourcing is excellent. Or the ones that you can get with no certification, it costs $100 less. You're right. The $100 less is what the consumer wants.
All right, so this is good. I'm going to get a little board up here. Can someone make notes? Okay, who's good at making notes here? She's great at making notes. Can you make some notes for us? Yeah, Hattie. Okay, can you make some notes? My soul skill. Okay, so not your soul skill, your soul, S-O-U-L skill, okay? So first of all, make the note over here that we need to have suppliers, our wholesalers communicate to their suppliers. Make the note here that we need to be able to have credible ways to communicate to the customer that this is a socially responsible product. And also make a note that there's a third idea, which is we need to set things up so that consumers can communicate to each other, can demonstrate that the product is good. And now there's a fourth point, which is, you know, where's the beef, where's the money? And that where's the money is really the key, because from a truly ethical perspective, no, don't go away. You'll put that behind me. Here, put it over here. Here. Yeah. So society will get the level of ethics it's willing to pay for, no more, no less. So when we look at society and we say, why aren't you doing this? It's because people don't care, because money makes the world go round, and if people aren't willing to pay, it has to pay to be good. But the question then is marketing. We had diamonds that did not have a cut grade. GI did not put on a cut grade. And I kept fighting, cut grade, cut grade, cut grade. It's a famous story, Tivel's paradox, all the story there. And finally, AGS came out with a cut grade. AGS came out with a cut grade, GI came out with a cut grade. People got a cut grade, they started to cut triple X's instead of triple VGs. Today, about 90% or 88% of the diamonds in Rapaport are triple X, even though it cost about 3% more to manufacture that way. So what happened is we introduced a betterment. The betterment got into a competitive cycle, a competitive environment. Oh, you're scaring everybody away here. It came into a competitive environment, and then competition drove acceptance of the new standard. And we need to do that with the social responsibility in diamonds. Now, if you look at Whole Foods, right? So Whole Foods is expensive, but they're doing well. Even though a crazy company like Amazon bought them. But Amazon also bought Zappos, which is the most incredible customer service company, the exact opposite of Amazon when it comes to customer service. What is my point? We can create such a market. Now, it doesn't have to be the entire market, but we need to differentiate our customers. We need to segment our customers, and then we need to curate this product to them through marketing. So the fact that you may have 2 rings in your store, that's valuable. That's it. So you can have this or you can have that. But we need to sell this. We need to think about, how do we sell the better end? How do we sell consumer responsibility? Because people are just walking away from diamonds. They're saying all this stuff's garbage, bad, evil. I don't want to know about diamonds, you know? Even NGOs in Africa will say to you, we'll help people, but I don't want to touch the diamond business. It's dirty business. So we really need to think about what kind of marketing, what kind of advertising, what kind of communicating. Assume we have a product. Because you said, I need a product. I gotta be able to convince the customer. I got the customer, you know, so we need a product, okay? Some kind of a ethical brand or something, okay? Then what we need to do is we need to sell the hell out of it. And people say to me, people don't care about social responsibility. You haven't sold it. You haven't marketed it. Maybe people don't care about diamonds because De Beers no longer, or not just De Beers, well, De Beers no longer, you know, does generic marketing. So the question for us is going to go to marketing. A product, you're right. If you don't have a product, what are you going to market? If we start doing segmenting of, let's say on RapNet we have green stars. Will they be worth more? How much more? What segment of the population wants? And you guys seem to be jaded and saying, they don't care. Give it to them for 1 penny cheaper, and they don't care about any of this. You know, go kill people. We don't care. You really think that's the case? I mean, I want to ask the question here. Yes, please. Here, give her up. This is go yell exercise. Move around. Move those mics around, everybody.
So, all well taken. And this is sort of a focus on the final transaction to your retail customer. I would like to know more from this gentleman here about what you look at upstream, what your criteria is for having someone be a member of an organization like you? And how far up does it go? And maybe explain to us the trickle down all the way to here.
Happy to do that, and thank you again. And Martin, I would just offer an alternative before we start talking about product. And it sounds like there's a lot of retailers in here, so I'll go from that perspective. We're retailers. And just talking about RJC to answer your question. So the website's called responsiblejewelry.com. It's an organization that's been around now 15 years, again, focused on B2B, largely following, as was noted before, the Blood Diamond movie, as lots of programs were put in place, like the Kimberly process, to address that. But what the RJC does, essentially, is it certifies business practices, okay? It has claims for product. I'll come to that in 1 second. But it's largely around labor, governance, largely around human rights. So when if you're looking to give your customers an assurance, okay, that's what the RJC logo is. It's that good housekeeping seal that says, oh, I'm a good retailer because I'm a member of RJC. I've been certified. My business practices are good. And just having that logo on your website, on your phone, customers can click, go to the website. That's all they're looking for today. That's what our research tells us, that they're just looking for an assurance. They want to know Kay, Zales, Tiffany, Macy's, Penny's, wherever they're going to buy their jewelry is a good place to buy jewelry. And if we can just give them that assurance, then I don't think we're going to have to get to, and I hope we don't have to get to the point at scale of marketing the jewelry as ethical. Today's consumers just looking for that assurance from the retailer. Now, there are certainly niches, right? And there are organizations and companies and retailers that, Brilliant Earth, right? That position themselves around that. But that's a niche. Tiffany's program is.
I mean, a huge portion of my clients come to me saying, I shopped on Brilliant Earth, and they say that they're ethical, and I don't believe them. Mm-hmm. That's a huge, huge thing. I mean, this is not 5% of people who walk in the door. It's 75% of people saying, yeah, they say it, but I don't believe them. And what's his name? That guy who did the YouTube video exposing that Brilliant Earth doesn't actually know the source of their diamond. People cite that to me daily, right? So how do you make them believe it?
Look, I'm not going to, I know Beth, and she's an extraordinary leader trying to develop something, and I think there's opportunity there. So just using her as an example, but there's 20,000 jewelry stores in the U.S., right? So what are we going to do together to give that U.S. consumer the confidence that the industry is good? It starts with I don't know where you're located. I don't know the name of your jewelry store. Where are you located? L.A. Okay, great. So are you a one store? Or are you?
I'm not a retail operation.
Oh, okay, no worries. But in any case, if there are retailers in here, and you've got to have a website, you've got to have social media, or you're not in business today. And that's where the consumer is beginning their journey. And if you're Kevin's Jewelers, let's say he was in LA, right? And you had RJC or JA or AGS. Those are little cues to a consumer that says, oh, these guys are okay. I'll continue. But if they don't see anything, to your point, they're not continuing. They're never coming to your store. So we have to give them, as an industry, some kind of cue. RJC's a high bar. There's no question about that. But organizations like AGS and JA give cues to consumers. And if we can all do that, it's a beginning.
I think I mean no disrespect. I'm sure it's a great goal, but I think if you ask 100 typical ring buyers, does RJC give you comfort? 99% of them are going to say, who the hell is RJC?
Consumers?
Yeah.
100% will say, who's RJC?
Right, so that's a problem.
Yeah, because it wasn't built for B2C. It was built B2B, and it's done its job. Okay?
Yeah, but
so
one second.
Now we're talking about, that's part of what I'm trying to do is chair it. Now, how do we bring it to B2C? That's what we're trying to do.
So to follow up on that, besides retailers being members, wouldn't you also want a good portion of the manufacturing diamond people to be your members? Because that is where it starts. I think the biggest gap is manufacture.
They are. 625 of the 1,200 members are manufacturers. If you want to know where we source our products that we sell, hundreds of millions of carats per year, and $6 billion worth of jewelry. Go to the RJC site, you'll
That's
see.
To me, that's a start. That's a
It's there,
real
and
start.
that's what consumers will see, okay? So, and there's also traders, there's also associations, and also the mining companies. I'm the
Even
chair.
like, for example, would Botswana be a member?
It's not governmental, it's not a government organization, so it's a member-driven organization. So Signet's a chair, Al Rosa is a vice chair, De Beers is our treasurer, and Richemont Group is our honorary secretary. Those are our 4 officers, okay? 60% of our members are small, medium-sized companies, so it's certainly the larger companies are making the investment on behalf of industry here, but our membership is largely comprised of
See,
smaller
I
companies.
think that is a very, very important component part. I just got back from Botswana a month ago, and through my research, I found it fascinating. Well, number one, they know where their diamonds come from because it's from only their country, right? So you can track something like that, but they're kind of a exception to sort of the mining rules, right? Everybody gathers from all kinds of different sources, that they mix parcels. You don't really know what you're getting at the end of the day. So I found my little excursion there really fascinating and kind of reassuring that there is some kind of solid traceability, but they're just one country supplying only their product. And the other countries, I don't know even where to begin.
Right, well, we do.
Yeah, but hang on a
Great.
second. One second. Let's assume that the supply side gets itself covered. There's problems with smaller suppliers, there's problems with smaller cutters, there's problems with artisanals, but let's assume that 85% of the world's diamonds coming from 6 companies will somehow get channeled in a way that we know that they're okay. But that's the sound of one hand clapping. What about the consumer? And the bigger problem is that I think the RJC and all these guys, they're interested in protecting themselves. But defense is not offense. And when we look at synthetics, we get offense, baby. We're out there. And we're standing here, punch me here, punch me there. We're not doing a damn thing when it comes to the consumers. Now, Brilliant Earth might be doing it right or wrong, but our bigger institutional things, they're doing what they can. But going to the consumer in an aggressive fashion, now that creates problems. Because if you're a large company and you don't want to start going crazy, differentiating your products, like you said, you have 2 products in your store, right? Maybe, they used to argue with me. Oh, Terry Berman used to say to me, he used to be the CEO of Signet. Well, we can't do this because if we do this, what about our other products? That's all nonsense. That's all stupid. I mean, today everybody's branding 100 different types of diamonds, a Leo cut, this cut, that cut. So now the question is, to the consumer, we talk 10 years here with these meetings. We have every year. I think this must be our 10th or 11th year doing these meetings. What about the consumer? How do we get the message to the consumer? And we thank RJC for doing a great job in the B2B. But B2B alone is just, it's not gonna cut it anymore. So now the question is, and you see GIA taking a very proactive stance with their grading report saying, we'll tell you where the diamond came from with your grading report. It's very powerful because that goes to the consumer. And that I think people would trust. Do you think people would trust a... Right, okay. So now let's think about how do we market and get the message out to the consumer that my diamond is better than other diamonds because it has a social responsibility component that can be trusted and communicated. Is that that's a fair kind of a characterization of what we need to do? All right, so now people tell me, how are we going to do this?
So Martin, so
Genius, great, go for it, man. You're part of.
So I think that when I first walked in, you made a comment about, consumers coming into the retail jeweler. Consumers, we know, spend an enormous amount of time online getting their information. We know that the industry, actually, Martin did a great job of showing what that supply chain looks like. And the industry has been working on their image for a long time. And there's certification of all sorts, there's labs of all sorts, there's information of all sorts, but we also know that consumers, by and large, I think it's 90% or so, are buying in retail stores, still, today. And the reason they are is because they're coming into retail stores wanting to go through this information that they've gotten and find out what part of that is really credible, to your point, okay? So it's got this certain, and it's got this RJC accreditation, whatever. But what the hell does that mean to me? So the bottom line is that last 18 inches, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the consumer finds out what this is all about. And the only way that happens is if the retailer doesn't rely on all of this stuff. You don't rely on the certificate. You don't rely on what people are saying. You rely on what you know and how you can take that and make it tangible in maybe soundbite doses for your consumer, because you're not going to tell them everything you know. There's no way. I know 45 years worth of stuff about diamonds. If I told them everything I knew, it would take 45 years. And I'm a pretty smart cookie anyway, so I'd have to adapt. I'd have to figure that they could figure out what I learned in 45. What I need to do is be able to tag what it is they need to know, because a lot of them don't need to know what you're asking. And you don't need to tell them if they don't need to know it. And that's not the same as denying them information. What you need to do is give them the information that they need in order to be comfortable to make the buying decision that's good for them. The only way you can do that is you've got to be a step ahead of your consumer. So you've got to be educated. You've got to know what responsible means. You've got to know what ethical means. And you've got to have a coherent and quick and easy and palatable statement about that. And you've got to be able to look your consumer in the eye and go, you got that information? Really? Why do you think that? Let me set you straight on that. Are we good? And they will buy from you when you've established an emotional connection. And the emotional connection is that they can trust you. And they can trust you because you have a confidence in what it is you do. You have a passion in what it is you do. You have a level of experience and education in what it is you do. And you need to be able to communicate that. When the only thing that you've got to say to the consumer is, I've got everything that everybody else has, but I got it cheaper, you're not selling anything. You're not selling anything. You're giving stuff away, and you're lucky if you're able to do it, because they don't know anything more once they've walked into your store than when they walked in with all the information they've gotten on the internet. So I think the answer to the questions that are sort of roaming around here, I think that everybody who's doing what they do, if they do the best that they can, and they do it with the love and the passion of being in their particular part of the industry, and they recognize what everybody else around them is doing, I think that's what drives the solution. I don't think me saying GIA's got to do it different, or EGL's got to change the way they do, or Martin Rapaport and his SI3 drive me nuts. You know, that stuff, what the other guy's doing is not my problem. My problem is to be able to decipher that and deal with the consumer at a very conversational level. That's the trick. And I think it takes a lot harder work than a lot of retailers are willing to put in. And the easy route is to say the customer didn't buy from me because, you know, somehow it's their fault.
You're talking about easy route. The easiest thing, I went into a sales and I asked like about some customer service or conflict thing. They handed me a handout. Okay, so it's a piece of freaking paper, and all it says is like, we're ethical, blah, 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 and guess what? Nobody reads after the first 3 sentences, but they all feel warm and fuzzy. So what if you just went on your printer and you printed out like a little brochure? I'm just saying, like, and they
Do they feel warm and fuzzy?
I don't know. I mean, I think they can read more if they want to. The people that did. I don't know if sales was doing it.
I don't think, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea.
You think it's a bad idea?
I think that means, hi, I'm making $16 an hour working behind a jewelry counter. I don't know, read
But
this.
but for
Right?
you would make it really what you know. You would say, this is my
what we're
suppliers
doing
that
now.
I really know, and the Canadian, and maybe that would be.
And I think everybody here is doing something that they know how to do, but the fact that we all showed up in this room means we want to do better, right? I mean,
David wants to say something.
So those are my pamphlets.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think people would read them. I thought they were
Okay. 15 years ago, they were a great idea.
Okay.
Okay? And they're still a good idea.
Okay.
Okay? And we can do better. But I do want to come back to what this gentleman says, because I'm just going to give a little bit of a history. 25 years ago, our industry had different kinds of problems. And the leadership at that time felt like, look, if the industry can show a philanthropic perspective, that'll make consumers feel good about the industry, right, Martin? And we formed Jewelers for Children, right? It worked for a while. And then we have Conflict Diamonds. We have the Kimberley process. We have the World Diamond Council. And we needed to take another step. So organizations like Diamond Empowerment Fund was formed, and we have today Diamonds Do Good. Right, those are the efforts that were put into place, but they're dated now, and we need to do more. I'm using those two as examples because what we did with both those organizations, which are still in place today, and it's low-hanging fruit, anybody can do it, is become a member, download the information, because what's there is called a retailer toolkit. And you can take down DEF information, you can take down JFC information, you can put it in your stores. Again, these are visual cues that's all consumers are looking for. They're a little outdated, and that's why we know at RJC we have to do the same thing for our members. We have to, and particularly the retailers, to develop this retailer toolkit that gives them social media content, talking points, something other than a handout, something that's relevant to giving those consumers the assurances that retailer's okay. If we have to get to product, that makes me nervous, because that means we haven't done our job at the retail level. If we have to verify every bit of product that we're selling, then that is a problem, I think.
I mean, that's a good point, and I think that's, so you and me may have different views about this. You go to a place that says we're vegan, you're comfortable. Now, we know what vegan means. Oh, we have nice food. No, we're vegan, or we're veggie. Now, the product problem is that we don't trust the organizations. And I don't trust organizations, and I'm not a millennial, okay? But if I was a millennial, I really wouldn't trust organizations. Everybody lies to you, cheats you, steals from you, does what they can to screw you. That's the world that I see, because in general, that's the world the way it is. Come on, even Facebook is screwing me, you know? So, like, that's how I look at the world. And the bigger you are, the more likely you are to really be messing me up. So the person, what? I know, Ron. Yeah, we use Facebook, but do we trust them? Well, we sort of have to, because that's the cost of using them, but do we trust them? I don't know. Do we trust Google? Do no harm? It sounded so great. I didn't even imagine they were going to do harm, but do we trust, I don't know, Boeing? Do we trust Tesla? I don't know, you know. So, like, there's a lot of this stuff going on where, you know, and this is where you talk about the who, and this is where I talk about the what. Now, I don't know. I look at kosher. See, with kosher, the way kosher certification works is, and it's a real pain in the ass. If you ask for kosher, they bring you these plastic things. You got to rip through the plastic, and it really pisses me off. But kosher is on the thing, because we don't trust rabbis. We just the rabbi that puts it in the thing, but you can't just say, no, we are kosher restaurants, so that can happen. My point is that the product movement probably needs to take place, and it'll go side by side with the who movements. Tiffany probably will not tell you the story of the person that cut your diamond. Someone else will. Hi, here's the video. Here's Joe, you know, he cut the diamond. Here he is. Hi, I'm Joe. I cut this 154 FVS1. I don't care. Industry is best served, as the FTC would say, with the maximum amounts of different people doing things. So it is possible that these kinds of efforts about product-specific things, even though you may not want to see it, they may be the solution for the small people, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just at the same time, because we're always testing things. We have a program in the UK. We have a program for Zales, and we have a program for Jared, where guess what? The diamond cutter is identified. So, you know,
Yeah.
we're trying to take advantage of, again, what's real and what's practical and what's already taking place in the marketplace, in the supply chain, and then trying to bring it to the consumer. But it's a very small program because it's very niche, because, again, the consumers just, oh, is Kay okay? Is Zales okay? Is Jared okay? That's what they want to know first. Once they're in, they're okay. Now, you were talking about engagement rings earlier this morning. That's an important point. We have to give him something, because after she says yes, she wants to know, is this a conflict? Is it a blood? How do you know? and he has to have some assurance. That's what those pamphlets are for. Okay, so if you're, go to another retailer, ask the same question, what are you going to get? Our market research, we had stores actually say, I don't have conflict diamonds, but I can get one. Well, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, the ignorance.
That's a good one.
So that's what we're up against. That's what we're up
I
against.
understand your research. What I'm saying to you is that for Zales and Signet it might be one thing. For a guy who has an upstairs shop selling stuff, it may be something else. And so I think that one of the points of differentiation or unique selling propositions or whatever you have for the smaller jewelers might be, hey, no question, we tell you everything about this diamond. You don't have to trust me because I'm a small guy and you might think I'm this or I'm that. Yeah, when you've got Zales or Signet or whatever you got, you could probably sell the brand. Tiffany could probably sell the brand and not have to worry about selling the product. But what about the other 20,000 jewelers or something? So I'm thinking that we need to allow all these different things to happen, okay? And I don't know to what degree the person wants to actually meet the cutter who cut the diamond, okay? But I think that let there be 1,000 lights. Let there be all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. But it is clear to me that we need to be able to segment products out that say that these are good. And even if you say, I'm not saying they're bad, the other ones are bad, I just don't know where they are. But the kind of segmentation, or I would call bifurcation of the diamond industry that I'm expecting to see is, here's diamonds, we know where they come from. Here's diamonds, they're fine, just we don't know where they come from. And I think that we can't fight enough against Zimbabwe or Congo and spend all our energy fighting. We're better off spending our energy defining good products. And then the other stuff will take care of themselves. I'm not talking about necessarily Kimberly process for polished, although that's what the State Department is talking about, but think about how can you differentiate your product as socially responsible in the best way for your store. And you said about personal communication. So maybe there needs to be more training, more trips to Sierra Leone, more trips to Surat, more ways for people to get a personal experience when they can testify or they can say, I went, I asked, this is what I did to make sure that the diamond was okay. And that might work very well for you, not so much for Signet or Zales. And everybody's got a different story, you know?
Well, I think for everybody, continuing education in whatever your trade is, whatever your level in the trade is necessary. I mean, to your point over here, things change. What was optimum and okay 3 or 4 years ago is passé. You know, so you have to be current. And if you want, ultimately, whoever your customer is, if you want them to trust you, it's like I learned when I was in grad school, the first time I had to teach. My professor said, I know you're nervous, you've never been in front of a crowd like that, you're afraid somebody's gonna notice that your pants are around your ankles because you really don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, but the truth of the matter is, you only have to know one lesson plan ahead of them. They're not geniuses. They're coming to you for information. And if you know the next lesson plan, they probably didn't do the last one, so you're way ahead of them already. But you need to stay ahead of your customer, that's all. And if you're not ahead of your customer, you can't lead the sale. You can't create demand. You can't get them to focus on what the important things are. If you're, you know, one of my biggest pet peeves is I give my customers what they want. It's like, are you kidding me? Your customers want what you create. That's what they want. You create demand. That's your job. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what level you're at. If you're a wholesaler to a retailer, if you're a retailer to a client, you need to create the demand. And what's happened to the natural diamond prices that Martin's talking about going down, De Beers used to be solely in charge of creating demand for everybody. And they did it for a long time. They quit for an entire generation. And we're seeing the results today. Because during that generation, if you didn't keep that going on your own somehow as a retailer or a brander or whoever you were, it was a downward price spiral and demand was declining. So that's your job. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the industry, You need to stay at the top of your game. And your customers will gravitate toward you if that's who you are. There's a lot of people in the market that, you know, do trust big companies. They do trust Tiffany's. They do trust Zales. They do trust trademarks and stamps and all of that stuff because that's good enough for them and they just need to get the thing done. There's other people that are very, very particular and they want somebody who is knowledgeable and can tell. That's a different customer and depending on who you are, you got to take care of your customer. But I can't emphasize it enough. If you're not a step ahead of your client all the time, you're losing the game.
Right, so wait, this is great. So what we got was education to the suppliers, and now we have education to the retailers to really understand clearly what does it mean when you say the diamond is, or whatever, the jewelry, the gold, that is socially responsible. What exactly does that mean? What does the definition of social responsibility mean? So that they can talk to the consumer responsibly and honestly and accurately about what is this product and why it's socially responsible and how it's socially responsible. So I think that the idea that we're educating, or we need to get education going for retailers to the consumer, is very important. And I think that's what you're kind of communicating.
And also to the extent that the retailer does know who their customer base is,
Yeah, obviously.
they have to tailor what it is that they need to stay on top
Yeah,
of.
but they have to tell the truth. Now, no one back here has said anything, so I want to reach up back here and, whoops, get some people here to talk about this. You look like a very nice lady. Are you a little shy? What's going on? You're shy? You don't look so shy. Oh, you know, that's,
Martin, I'm not shy.
I know, but
So-
you've already spoken a lot. I'm trying to get some people out here. You guys want to say anything here? Hey, what do you think we can do? Yeah, you got. Hey, you talk. We want to get everybody involved here. You know, this is like a community we're creating today.
I would like to know about
Speak a
the.
little louder, closer.
I would like to know about this created diamond that most people are asking me, and I'm not a fan of it, and I never sold any. I wanted to know if basically they're coming a lot in the market, and I was just wondering if I wanted to sell one to a consumer that they're willing to buy, how could I support it when they're coming back to me to sell it? This is my question.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, this mic. Yeah, you gotta really like eat the damn thing. Make believe it's a carrot. He said, look, if someone wants to sell a created diamond, it's a funny name, lab created, man created, some kind of created. And what am I going to tell the customer when he comes back in 5 years? That was your question, right? He's nodding his head. And that's a good question. It's just tell the truth, baby. You know, when you sell them the diamond, say you want to buy this, but you should be aware it doesn't have natural scarcity, and its price will not track natural diamonds, and it might be worth a lot less money. And I think as long as you tell the truth, my view of the world is you speak the truth, you're okay, but you got to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. You can't shade it and mess around with it. But I think if we're talking about socially responsible diamonds, let's ask the real question. Are synthetic diamonds socially responsible? Maybe they are. You know, that's a good question. So let me get someone out here to, here's this tall guy, this Israeli guy. I think. He's smiling here. Yeah, go ahead, talk about things. You're all clubbed together over here.
Yeah, well, maybe first of all, disclaimer, because I have a little bit of bias, because my name's David. I'm from a technology company that deals with traceability and providing solutions for provenance. So I am biased. Sorry, everyone can hear me? David asked me to tell who I'm also David. I'm the CEO of Serene Technologies. So as I said, I have a bias. We provide technology for the diamond industry. I'd say most of the diamonds in this building have gone through our technology throughout their life cycle. And I actually agree with the gentleman over here, despite being from a technology company. And I think the experience in the store is one of the most important things that the retail can offer the consumer. And it's a combination between the experience and being able to provide information that the retailer can also stand behind, because we live in a very complicated industry. Martin showed the pipeline between the mine all the way down to the consumer, and that was actually a very simple representation of really what happens. It's a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of players along the way and chains of hands. And do we really know where that diamond came from? Therefore, from our perspective, we're trying to, and we are developing technology and have technology to track that diamond as it goes down the pipeline. But that's not enough to be able to say this diamond came from Botswana or from Russia or from wherever. It's a story behind why it's important that that diamond came from a certain place, how it contributes to the community, how they take care of their local communities or the environment over there, how they take care of the employees in the mines. So I think the story behind where that diamond comes from is just as important as the fact that it comes from a certain location. And maybe in the past, because of all the aspect of blood diamonds, we wanted to erase the negative aspects of where a diamond didn't come from. I think today it's even more important to emphasize the positive aspects of where the diamond comes from and how it does good for those locations. So it's definitely, my point, a combination of that experience and that story in the store combined with verifiable, reliable data and information so that not everyone can claim, well, we're ethically sourcing diamonds where they don't. And when I travel, I walk a lot around. My travels in the world, I go into retail stores and do type of mystery shopping, you know. Ask about buying a diamond and see what they tell me, or watch other consumers, how they interact with the salespeople. And most of the time, the salespeople, they'll start with some kind of sentence like that. Yes, our diamond's ethically sourced. And when I start asking a little bit more, they get a bit, you know, okay, the conversation ends and they try to pull me to some other direction. So I definitely think education, telling that story, creating the experience in the store, and having reliable information that you can really stand behind is the combination that will really work.
This is great. So we're basically agreeing that we should have more information, more education, and more basis of what we're saying. I know that, by the way, you know, we have some really heavy hitters. You know, you've got Signet here, you've got RJC here, you've got Sarin here. These are really, you know, foundations. And we even had, before I jump first, thank you, that was great, okay? And I think that we're getting an understanding, more information, and you're providing a very lot of detailed information, right? So
Yeah. Anyone's interested can come on over to our booth. Sorry for the advert.
Tell us here, you're providing information about where the diamond comes from?
It's not only information, it's actually, we provide a story. It's information, but it's a story as well. We believe in way beyond information. Information is great, it's nice, but dry, uninteresting information in a real environment is really not what we think is the only thing that's important. How do you package that into a story? How do you package that into an experience in the store? So it's a combination between the information, the experience in the store, and the story behind it. And that's, I think, what creates interest and engagement within the retail environment. It's not just a dry piece of paper with having, this is from Botswana.
All right, so we got education for the retailer. We've got the idea of the brand that says we're subscribing to certain values, so I can trust this company. And then we've got an actual story. So it's education, information, and a story. Now we've got the Queenie here. I forgot your name. What's your name? Leah. Now you've got an interesting group called Jewelers Helping Jewelers. Tell us a little bit about that and what you, with your, how many members do you have there?
17,000 retail jewelers.
17,000 retail jewelers hanging out on the internet or something.
Yeah, we hang out. It's called the internet. It's called the Facebook. Yeah. Okay. Well, the thing is, we got this. Okay, so we got all the stories and we got all the education, and it's so damn boring. And that's not how you get through to anybody. And I watched the DPA yesterday, who I love, and like, diamonds are millions of years old. They are formed under the ground. And I snored. You know what gets across to people? Humor. Now, I get everybody can't be like a jokester, but it is such an effective way. You know, do you switch diamonds here? Yeah, how do you think I got all of these? You know, I mean, or no, we only switch them for a better one. Or even when he was saying like, oh, you want a conflict diamond? I don't have any, but I'll get one. It is so memorable and effective, and we need more of it in this industry, and we have become so stale. And that's, you watch all these commercials now, like the, Taco Bell and well, all of them, they're funny. And they're so, it's such a great way to get across to people. You know, even instead of saying diamonds are millions of years old, how about say, the diamonds are so old, when they were formed, the Dead Sea was just sick. I mean, it's like, you're gonna remember it, and it gets the same point across. And so maybe we need to hire some stand-up comics or something. How about that?
When this woman put out to the GIA, this is a synthetic That kind of stuff is what you talk about.
Yeah.
Really well, you can't tell them apart with some humor.
I mean, even the best stories, I don't know, I can't sit through them. I'm sorry, like the Sarah, you know, it's neat. I want to come see your stories, and maybe they're good and stuff, but so many of them, I just see, I mean, I do videos. Okay, so I have a Facebook group. I started 3 years ago, and there was just a need for it, and every retail jeweler is in it, and it's fun, but I think what people like are, they need the sound bites, like he was saying, you know, sometimes you can't give them so much information. If I have a video that's over 1:10, it's 1:20. That's how long people will sit for it. So that is, you know, that's what you gotta do. I don't know.
So what do you do?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You got jokes?
Good morning. Mr. Rapaport, first of all, my name is Yair Pinkasov. I am the owner of Joseph & Sons Jewelers. I do want to thank you for enlightening me with some brilliant information. One of the things I learned this morning was, do we want to give them a sparkle or value, right? So yes, we all know it in the back of our head, but the way you phrased it, I think it's just simple and just beautiful. I wanted to touch on what you said earlier, and that is, don't be afraid to challenge your clients or your customers. Because based on what this gentleman said here this morning was, well, they come to me with this and this and that, and how do I answer it? And when I do answer it, will they believe me or will they not believe me? Right? And then you said, well, it's all about branding. Branding is trust. A lot of the times, I have clients who come into my store and they want something that's just textbook perfect, right? I want that VVS 1D 1.2 carat, and I don't want you to show me anything else. A lot of times they have no idea what they're asking for, and it's just because they saw it on Instagram or on Facebook or any social media platform. What I've learned is if you actually engage with your clients and you actually challenge them, not just give them what they want, but challenge them, and take 4 stones or 5 stones and put them on a tray and say, you know what, here's what you're gonna do. I want you to figure out which one you like, which one really talks to you, and why did you choose the stone you chose, and then I'll tell you that you've chosen a SI versus a VVS. And that's one of the things I try to train my employees is don't just listen to what the customer wants and then just give it to them. Challenge them and say, hey, well, you know what? I like what you want, and I'm going to give you what you want, but I want to give you an option of seeing what is also available. And humor is the #1 thing, and I agree with you. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you're the jewelers, Family Jewelers. I actually just found out about that a few days ago from a jeweler in New York City. I'm based in New York City, so I'd definitely like to talk to you a little later about that one. Huh? I definitely would want in. Huh? Do you? Good. So can you vouch for me? You know.
Who spent 30 years in Sierra Leone with the Diggers. So why don't you know, he's a real character. Your beard, you trimmed your beard, okay?
Yeah.
He has spent a lot of time in Sierra Leone with Diggers and wants to start cutting there or something. Or let us know,
Yeah.
how does this all play out for the Diggers? These people making $2 a day. I mean, are we all crazy?
Well, I'm listening to this conversation, and that's my perspective, is from, you know, how is this ethical thing? Okay, how you can convince the consumer, but what does it do for the little guy out there in the pit? What's it do for that situation that is way unexplainable right here? But it's the situation in artisanal miners have is a huge problem. There's a lot of money in the diamonds, but it doesn't go that way. It doesn't trickle down to there, and Martin has been trying to figure out ways to make them have some benefit, as well as myself, and it is a dilemma that I don't know is solvable until you address other issues with governments and whatnot. But in 1981, I bought the diamond cutting. Sierra Leone used to manufacture their own diamonds, or they used to manufacture in Sierra Leone. And this lady had mentioned she went to Botswana and saw the factory, and the #1 thing is, you know, the diamonds came from there. When Sierra Leone, they started this factory not to employ the people, but to get access to the rough. And the diamonds they actually cut in Sierra Leone were not Sierra Leone diamonds. They could have been, but they were brought in from outside. And the whole reason why was to get access to the rough. At that time, it was a national diamond mining company, and you got a quota. And because they started up the manufacturing, they got quota from the Sierra Leone mining company. And that was the reason they started their manufacturing. So what's perceived is not always the case. In Botswana, it's a different situation. They are Botswana stones, but once again, the little guy just doesn't get the benefit from all the activity. And it's...
Do you think there's any relevance to what we're talking about here, with some hope that we can get some kind of fair trade document?
Exactly. How do you
lead the way to a higher level like fair trade coffee or chocolate or bananas?
Right. How does the trickle-down theory actually trickle down? And get, well, right.
Do you think that
So,
could ever happen?
Not in my lifetime. I don't think so. I've been in Sierra Leone since 1978 when you started, Mr. Rapaport. So I've got a lot of experience there. I've seen it go through up and down between Civil War, Ebola, every catastrophe you can imagine has happened to these poor folks, and they are still in the same plight that they were back in the...
Is there nothing we can do to help these people?
First of all, you have to legitimize what they're doing now and not make them the criminal. And as you know, a lot of these people aren't licensed. Well, if you're going to have an ethical source chain, you have to do it through licensed people and document all that. And that's not the reality on the ground. So that needs to be addressed and changed. And then maybe there's some hope, I don't know.
I just want to add a point. Peggy Jo Donahue, and I've just been following these issues as a writer for many, many years, and these are very, very important issues, and Sierra Leone was really the first place I learned about. But the point I wanted to make is I also serve on the Diamond Development Initiative's advisory group, and I wanted to mention that idea of sourcing and having standards and having the miners licensed and having the miners do things the right way is exactly what the Mandela Diamond Standards do. And I know it's a lot of pages and a lot of reading if you want to do it, as you mentioned, Martin, but they really are the fair trade diamond. That is a way to say, in much the way, I don't know what company in Botswana is marketing the diamonds in a way that you can tell your customer these are from Botswana and they were fairly mined and they are fairly cut, and tell that story. But Sierra Leone can do the same thing through the miners who do get certified through these standards. So as much as it's a lot of words, it's essentially a fair trade diamond, using fair trade in lowercase. So it is possible. It's just, I think, taking a long time to get there, because I know DDI, the Diamond Development Initiative, has been working on it for a long time.
Okay, so there's a hope. And do you think you can sell those jewelers for jewelers?
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds great.
You think so? I'm serious. So you think you could get people excited about it?
I do. I'm good at telling other people's stories, and that's why I come to and follow everything you do and stuff. It just has to be packaged and so easy. I mean, you know, I don't know. It just has to be easy.
It has to be easy.
It just has to be easy. And in steps, you know, and complete baby steps. Step 1, you put a logo on your website that says fair trade. You know, step 2, you have a staff meeting next Friday, and you know, I mean, it has to be all these, you know, sometimes you go to these things and they're like, give great customer service. And you're like, well, what the hell? You know, it needs to be like step 1, you do this, and step 2, and baby steps, and I think we could get there.
Is Bafana Chabalala. I'm a consultant representing a company called OC Gems. They are displaying some of their diamonds downstairs. Excuse?
Is that Okavango?
No, in South Africa, Kimberley. The company polishes and manufactures their own diamonds, and we were having a lot of these conversations about responsibility and sourcing ethical diamonds. From our perspective is that we work with the mining companies, we also work with artisanal miners. How do we document this information to make it easier for you, the jewelers? That's all we need to know.
Okay, so he wants to know, he's doing the thing, how does he connect up with the jewelers who will then sell the added value that he's created? Is that the idea? Yeah, somebody could use that. Yeah, somebody talk. Anybody here know, if you got a good item, he's got something to say as well. I want to get some other people in this thing here. How can we sell, if we have the product, we know these guys in South Africa supposedly have a really good product, so what do? We hook them up with Jewelers for Jewelers,
So-
we advertise them, what do we do here? We make a committee that says, we're going to push this stuff, what do we do?
So last year, in October, I was in Chicago, Responsible Jewelers Council in Chicago, had a conference. And what I do for a living, actually, I'm a cutter in the American Diamond Cutter, that's who I am. And I do a lot of recutting, used to recut old mines, old Europeans to modern standards. Today I do most of those to the old standards, but really refurbish them. And I got this idea, I have a diamond that I promote as, it's a new diamond. And to walk away from all of the discussion most of us have had, I thought, okay, and what Martin's talking about, recycled diamonds, is basically I talk about pre-war diamonds. I use recycled diamonds from retailers and make brand new product. Not round, VG, excellent that they can get anywhere, but a new product that I call the American Rose Brilliant. So that's what I was pitching at the Responsible Jewelers Council. Now, the eye-opening event for me was a young lady who, a lot of fair trade jewelers who are selling fair trade gold and fair trade jewelry, one of their biggest problems, they had a panel and said, what do you have the most difficulty sourcing? And she was from France, and they have great clientele who, so great that they're actually willing to pay more. They're willing to pay a premium for this story, for ethically sourced fair trade jewelry. And she said, our biggest problem is diamonds. And recycled diamonds notwithstanding, I mean, that's okay. Canadian diamonds, that's okay. But what we're looking for is a responsible chain story of a diamond that comes from West Africa, that has this mining family attached to it, that is cut here, that has this story. We've got that pre-sold, and we can't get it. We can't not get that in the marketplace. We can sell it all day long. And that got me to thinking, wow, I'm off base. I'm trying to do this recycled thing, and she's saying, no, you don't change the future by just patching up the past. You change it by actually doing a new thing. So I started thinking, wow, you know, and I'm 45 years best friends with Mickey.
Best friends with who?
Mickey, who's been in Sierra Leone
Mickey,
all this
that's
time.
Mickey, all right.
So I said, we're missing the boat here. What we need is a story, not just what Peggy's talking about, which is great, and not just this certification of miners, but actual value added in West Africa. And trust me, in West Africa, the alluvial diamond situation, it's not a mega factory. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is put in a small scale cutting facility. So in Bo, in Kenema, in Kodu, you know, so that, and you get the community involved. Now you've got a story that you can create the levels of that story. You can do a video, you can do a chain of custody, you can do whatever, blockchain, whatever you want to do about it. But here's a story. It was found here in this village by this family or this clan, whatever. It was actually manufactured. Maybe it even becomes a brand that they make, a design that they make, that's an African story to tell. You know, at the end of the day, that story is going to be probably sold, to Aaliyah's point, for the same price as other diamonds. You're probably not going to get a premium. You might. There are jewelers out there who say they can get it for that. It's a niche market. But those niche markets, those, AGS 000s, those become the main market later. It's got to start somewhere, and it starts, I think in the case that we're talking about, ethical, here we have this discussion going on. How many people are in this room? I don't know, 30? I'm not great at, 30 people. How many jewelers are here in JCK show? Okay, this is we're at the beginning levels of this. It doesn't mean it'll never get bigger by any means. What I saw in Chicago in October last year was exciting as hell, and there was maybe 300 people there. And I expected one thing, and I thought I was super hip, and I was gonna, my ideas were gonna sort of be set. Hell, it opened my mind, the stuff that I saw happen there. And it's happening around the globe. So the issues we're talking about are not just our own. They're in our own little niche in the business. They're global. The change can happen. And that's the project Mickey and I are working on right now, is to establish a small, artisanal diamond cutting in country. So even if it could work with Rapaport, that he's got people coming through to visit Sierra Leone, now they can visit the miner. They can actually visit some people who are learning to cut, or who have cut something and created a brand. And it can be small. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that it could happen there, then it could happen in the next town, then it could happen in Tanzania, then it could happen in Lesotho, and it could happen, it could get bigger. It could scale up, but it's got to start somewhere. So that's kind of what we're at.
I think the idea that, first of all, you're adding value within the country.
Which is essential.
Yeah, it's important. I know. Let me just play this. Take Patty's stuff. You get fair trade diamonds coming out of the DDI, and you got De Beers there to make sure, and you actually have fair trade rough. Now, DDI is all confused and messed up with, we want to make it a commercial thing, and we want to cut out all dealers and everything else, and I'm going to push them to auction stuff so that actually people can have access to the goods. That alone would be great, even if the diamonds were cut in America or cut in India or someplace, because they know that the diamonds themselves have helped these diggers do their thing. Like, you don't have to have the fair trade coffee actually ground up in But I'm not against the idea of cutting. That's great. Mickey, you want to do that? In fact, come talk to me. There's a guy who came to visit our booth that wants to invest in this.
We'll take it.
Okay, I'm sure you will. But even that's an additional added value. But if you don't have the patty thing, if you don't have the goods themselves coming from responsible sources, then no matter what you cut, it's not going to help. So I think that we're at the point in the industry now where we're starting to connect the dots, which is going back to what this gentleman said. I've got some added value here. Now, how do I get it to market? Right? That's your point. And that's why he's in this meeting here. And I think that one of the goals that we need to do is we now start to create some kind of a distribution system for fair trade diamonds, for ethically sourced diamonds, for storytelling about these diamonds. And I think that this could be the beginning of that effort. Now, there's a lot of great organizations. The people in Chicago, 300 people. I know Cecilia was working on that. I helped them out in the beginning. And what's it called, that organization?
Chicago Responsible Jewelry.
What?
Chicago Responsible.
Okay, but there was a responsible jewelry group that made something in New York as well. And the Jewelry Summit, it was called, right? And they brought people in. So what we're starting to see are all these grassroots thingies starting to pop up. And maybe what we could do at Rapaport, and maybe we could do with a group here or somebody, maybe Patty get involved and you get involved, and we start to bring these people together. Avi, you're out there? All right, so maybe you need to start writing about this, and Patty too. And then we start getting the stories about and posting them. This is what this person is doing in Africa. This is what this person is doing in Sierra Leone. This is what this person, and not gems also, maybe there's a whole, but I know that we have a huge problem with gems that are cut in Jaipur, with breathing in the stuff and people getting some kind of sickness. Yeah, Patty, go ahead.
There's a gem legacy organization in the colored gem industry that is doing precisely what you're talking about.
Right, so,
And telling individual stories and running school, or supporting a school in Tanzania.
In Tanzania, yeah, with Robert.
so let's get something going here, because, we're at about 11:37 here. We're gonna stop in about 20 minutes. So maybe we should think about what can we, first, I love you for writing all this stuff down. We're gonna take pictures of this, we're gonna post it, we're gonna have to send it out to everybody, right, Ophira? Okay? So we'll try to send notes of what we see here, but maybe we can start focusing on what we can actually do. And so maybe what we need to do is we need to start posting stories. Added value stories in the ethical space. Diamonds, gold. I know that we worked with the gold people out in Colombia, and now they've matured, and they've gotten to some higher level of stuff. And I think that when I go, I've been doing this now for like 20 years or something. We used to do it at Basel even. But if we can now think about, okay, where do we go from here? How do we actually make something happen? And even now, I'm so happy to see DDI is expanding. Maybe we'll talk to the Bears. They're buying the goods. I want to do auctions out there, Mickey, and maybe we can talk about that to get the goods out. The fact that you say there's demand for a product and the product exists. I'm saying, if there's demand for a product and the product exists, why isn't Rapaport doing his job? Why are we bringing this together? Okay, now it's not going to be the scale stuff that you're working on as well, David, but not that your stuff isn't important. But maybe this gives a halo effect. Like I said, I think Starbucks is 5% fair trade, but the halo effect is huge. And maybe for our industry, if people have an option, and there's a lot of people don't care what it costs. You get engaged to this young woman, and you're like, old woman, you're getting engaged, young guy, I don't know. You're not thinking money only. You're thinking special, unique, you said. I want something that's special. I want something that's meaningful. Now, if we could make part of the meaningfulness of the diamond that's a social responsibility aspect, and we can sell that, that's an opportunity to add value to the product. And we can talk about more than what the customer wants. And we can talk about what we can offer the customer that is more than what they walked into the store at. So when he walks out with more than he walked in. But it has to be real. It has to be accountable. Now, the RJC standards are very helpful in regards to provenance. So we don't have everybody saying everything about everything that's not meaningful. And so the RJC standards are not just for RJC members, by the way. They're a standard set that other people can apply and say, okay, if I'm going to make a statement about your African diamonds, you're going to want to say, okay, the thing that we're going to say about these African diamonds will be in compliance with RJC standards of disclosure regarding provenance, whether or not you're a member of RJC. So now we can start getting the industry to move in the same kind of a direction without terrible greenwashing. Greenwashing is the killer of everything that we're talking about today. And if we can do that, then we'll be, I think, in a better shape. So we have to start thinking about combining our stories. Maybe I'm going to reawaken this Rapaport Fair Trade website or something. I know we moved everything now into content, and now we can use you guys as well to start talking about stories and having fun with them. Having pictures and saying, this is what happened in Sierra Leone. And do you know that in Sierra Leone, they put in clean water, and some of the women destroyed it. They disabled it, the piping, because the women were going to do their washings, and that was a key social interactive environment for them. And therefore, they did not want coming in with their pipes and their stuff because it took away their meeting at the riverbank where they all communicated and hung out. So there's so much and that's not a funny story, but there's so much going on that we don't know about that is so interesting. So we have to think about stories, and I am getting this idea of stories. If you said to me, what did you learn today, me, Martin Rapaport, about this meeting? I'm learning about stories. I'm learning about the importance of stories and the telling of stories and the way in which, and Africa is full of stories. It's a country, and I'll tell you one quick African story, and it's very typical sometimes of the larger organizations trying to solve a problem because they see it from their perspective. So the chief comes to the village, and he has this chief chair. And you guys ever see a chief chair? It's like a bunch of wood, and then it has a little slot that goes in, and you sit on the slot. It's really, I had one at home in Israel. In any case, the chief comes, sits in his chief chair, and he sees everybody's looking, and they're all looking, and they go, what are you looking for? Well, this digger lost a diamond. They found a nice diamond, and they lost it. And everybody wants to find the diamond, help the digger find the diamond. And he found something and he lost it. So they're all looking, and then the chief says, bring me the digger. And they bring him the digger, and he says to them, where did you lose the diamond? He says, well, I lost the diamond in the cave over there. He says, well, why is everybody looking here? He says, here there's light. And there's a lot to be said about African development and USAID and an endless amount of discussion about that. But our job is going to be to go into the cave, to really understand. And Mickey, I need you to be more optimistic. How old are you, Mickey?
Okay.
How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
73.
All right, I'm 67. We have time. We're going to make it happen. We're going to have this lifetime thing. We're going to have, and you're going to hustle him, right? You're going to work with Mickey, and you're going to try and make cutting factories or whatever it is. And this DDI thing, we need to take it to the next level, Patty. We need, they're going to kill it. They don't know how to make business. They know how to make whatever bureaucracies. Okay? So we have to help them to get auctions going, get the product out there. This guy's got buyers for this stuff. And we're sitting there, no, we're going to do it this way. But I've seen a lot of the fair trade people go, and their main goal is to be socialist communists and make sure that they cut out every possible middleman. It's just a certain sickness NGOs have. Not necessarily DDI. It's just a general, look what happened with the gold. They had gold, they found gold, they wouldn't sell the gold in the open market, everything had to be. We need to encourage training, we need to encourage all these different people, designers and little people, get involved, buy the stuff, do things with it, and get high prices for it, is what I would like to say to you. So we can have an open, fair market for stories or storied diamonds, storied jewelry. And maybe that's what we really need to do here.
Well, that actually comes full circle to what he was talking about.
That's the idea.
Exactly right.
Because when you are a retailer and somebody comes in with all this information, you know, the best thing you can possibly do, whether it's humorous or not, is to take the points that are salient and put it together in a nice, quick story that makes sense, and then it's done.
If that existed, then when the guy comes in saying, why don't I buy a lab grown? Because the lab grown is clean and I'm not hurting, there's no children dying for it. If we could have a compelling thing that says, well, actually, when you buy this natural diamond, such and such miner in Sierra Leone is raising his family out of poverty rather than buying Leo DiCaprio another yacht, people would pay for that, right?
Well, then this is where the individuality of what we're doing. That may not work very well for Zales or for whatever, but that would work well for you. And that's why we live in a diverse environment where we can do this, we can do that. And I think what RJC is doing is very important also. We have a gentleman back there. Oh, that's right back there. What's your name? Me? Yeah, you. Stephen Morris with the GIA. Ah, I thought you were with the GIA. Come closer, come closer. Tell us what's going on there. I'm sure there's a reason you're here. You do good work. GIA is great. Tell us a little bit about the role of GIA and social responsibility. Give him one of these. Yeah, give the man a microphone. I love this guy here. I thought I spotted a GIA person there, lurking. Yes.
Well, the reason why I'm here, Mr. Rapaport, of course, this is the best show on the Strip.
Oh my gosh, that's not necessarily a compliment to everybody.
And no, I always try to attend this session. I'm Stephen Morris, so I'm Director of Corporate Communications at GIA. I am not a gemologist. Just want to get that out there. So you mentioned before our origin report. We just announced that. I think it's a very, very exciting initiative. It's very specific. We do not determine the origin. We can confirm the origin by scientifically matching the rough to the polish. So that's one of the things that we're talking about, and we're very proud of that right now. I'm sorry, I was definitely lurking in the back. It's not my intention to do a commercial about GIA. If you'd like to come to our booth, we will be talking about this program a little bit later today. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I'm hesitant to say it, but I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about anything you may want to ask about right now directly, or I'll be happy to stay around a little bit afterwards or give you my card. So.
There actually was, at that conference in October last year, Robert Weldon was there, and GIA was represented by him. They have done, and are currently involved with, I can't really speak for them or to it, but it's a program in Tanzania where, is it tourmaline?
Yeah, I'll be happy to talk about that. We created a guide for artisanal colored stone miners, It's very pictorial, very light on language, that helps them better evaluate the qualities of the rough stones that they find, so that when they take those stones to market, they are better informed for that transaction. We've gotten a very positive response to it from the miners in Tanzania, and that's where we've piloted it.
We're mostly women.
Mostly women. Well, we started with one of the women miners organizations. We worked through an organization called PACT. Many of you may have heard of it. It's a great organization doing some work out there. And so the miners are very pleased with it. It also turns out that the buyers are very pleased with it because they're getting better quality rough, because the miners have already done some revision. And we are in the very initial, and let me stress that, very initial stages of working to create something similar for artisanal diamond miners.
This is great. Look what we got here, everybody. We have a lot of people, but we've got biggest jeweler in the world here. We got RJC here. We got Jewelers for Jewelers, which is a whole other level. We've got GIA here. We've got Mickey and his guys with a tremendous amount of experience. So, you know, we got a lot of interesting perspectives, and the bigger companies are more interested, are more, I think, are more involved, or more, you know, checking it out. I think we only have 10 minutes here. I'd like to take a look at what you've been so kind to post on the board, and maybe we'll all take a look at it. There's a young woman back there. What's your story? Yeah, you. I always like to reach out, you know, like, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're here, what you think, and then we'll go over some of these sheets here that hopefully will kind of pull together what we've been thinking about. Go ahead, speak.
I'm Elizabeth. I'm a gemstone buyer and dealer. I deal mostly in Sri Lanka. This is a very near and dear cause to me. We are in Sri Lanka on the ground with the smaller miners, trying to make their lives better, the communities better. I believe that for us to move forward as an industry, we have to be authentic. To just give someone a brochure to feel warm and fuzzy, that's not good enough. And 5% fair trade, it's not gonna cut it anymore. And my generation sees that. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. My generation sees that, and they're gonna see through all this. We can't just create stories. The gentleman in the front earlier, adding wealth to the country and the community, that's the only thing that's going to fly. We need to truly believe in this cause. We need to move away from just making money, is what I believe.
Can we make more money selling these stories? If we kill yourself and you go and you know the source and you know all these things that cost money to do this, auditing and DDIing and stuff, can we make more money selling ethically documented, supported products?
It does cost more money, but if we don't spend the money now, we're not going to have an industry coming up.
Am I the only one who thinks we can make more money selling it this way?
No, he said you can. I think you can. I think that people honestly want better products. And why the hell does color and clarity tell the story?
Well, you make more money, ultimately in the diamond business by not selling color, clarity, caraway.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm saying, why shouldn't there be a fifth C or something, call it, you know,
Why are diamond prices dropping? You said in your speech diamond prices are dropping.
higher quality diamond because people don't want to buy them?
But I just, okay.
Could be. I don't know if it's just romance. You know, you can romance for an SI. You don't have to have a D flawless.
It's the emotional, I mean, you touched on it in your speech this morning. Diamond represent, and I'm speaking just in terms of diamond, but diamond is a superlative. It
Yeah.
is the highest level. It's the highest level of your credit cards. It's the highest level of your hotel chains. It is the highest level. Diamond represents an aspirational level of things. Diamond is an emotional statement. Diamond is an emotional icon that is a recognition symbol that is given out of love. And when you sell that, when you get somebody at an emotional level, money is not the object. In fact, what we've lost in this industry, the reasoning behind an engagement ring is to make her feel like a queen. Okay? And that is not done by telling her, you got a deal. It's done by saying, you spent more money than you ever spent in your friggin' life. You're 21 years old, and you spent more than you spent on a car you bought, and to give it away, which is a totally not economic activity. That is an emotional activity. And to bring that down to the level of this is a logistical economic activity hurts our trade.
This, by the way, is how we combat lab-grown. Right? And the cheaper lab-grown
Absolutely.
gets, the better we combat it.
Absolutely.
Because
And
when a lab-grown's $100, an engagement ring is supposed
The,
to be
the,
a
the
similar
woman
thing.
projects the value of the diamond onto herself. And anybody that goes, I got you something cheap, she's going to hate him. But let's take a second here. We got another 7 minutes to go. This gentleman's been scribbling stuff. Our goal should be to review what we've said, see what lessons we can learn. Do you still want to say something?
Yes, please, can you let her?
Of course I can let her. Are you kidding? She's a
Thank you.
wonderful person. That's the idea here.
Thank you.
Everybody should talk.
So can I direct the question to GIA?
Absolutely. You
Yes?
know, this
Okay.
is a circle
So,
here.
I listened in to the lecture about breaking open the country of origin as a option on a certificate. And
You're going to post them already.
I was
Running out of time.
fascinated by the answers because he went back on another slide and he gave a clear diagram that the only way that GIA can identify the country from which it comes from is from rough. So from rough, then the rough people have to, the cutters have to submit the rough to GIA. It gets a laser inscription. It goes back, and it goes back and forth many, many times to do the match, right? If that's the only protocol that they have in place to identify the country of origin, and he made very clear that he could not do any country of origin on loose stones, millions and millions and millions of loose stones out in the marketplace as we live right now. How is it that they're going to be able to do the country of origin for a massive market when the process is so singular and slow and almost sort of reserved for elite diamonds, you know, the bigger stuff where they can they're not going to be doing it for a 15-pointer. And then I saw this price list that says, if you want to add this feature onto your certificate, you can for this price. And it went from 15 pointers to 4 carats. So it was meant for the general mass market, but the process of how that originates is not a mass market process. So I found this gaping hole like really fascinating. And then they mentioned that they were going to roll this out for fall, right in time for Christmas. And I'm thinking, okay, how many certificates like this have you graded so far? He said 1,000. I was shocked. I thought he was going to say tens and tens of thousands.
Right, no, and I was there when you had this conversation with my colleague Matt Tratner, and I'll give you the same answer that he gave.
Wow.
You've got to start somewhere. So this is a very scientific
and
process. The
that I
technology
support.
was not there. The process was not there. We now, okay, forgive me for saying it, we have the technology, right? And we have the process, and you have to start somewhere. You're absolutely right, and I don't disagree with a single thing that you've said, except for your statement that this is only for elite jewelers. It is open to everyone. Anyone who has rough with the documentation can submit it to
Absolutely.
us. But we just have to start somewhere.
Yes,
Hey,
and I'm the first to support the
Guys,
GIA.
guys, okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Guys. I want us to get done with this thing, and I know you want to talk about the fact that Serena also does it. Let me just say this. We're moving. It's a process.
Absolutely.
It's a process. If mining companies start to do tens of thousands of stones, which they're going to do, Alrosa's doing it, I understand De Beers is doing it, it will become the norm, just like Triple X's became the norm, just like Cupcakes became the norm. So let's have a little bit of patience, okay? And let's recognize the fact that it's a process. It's going to take time. It's going to go there. There's also Serin who's doing another kind of a source certification. There's also going to be other people doing lots of things. And I think we just need to recognize that the product is desirable. No one is making, I don't know, diamond swimming pools, because no one wants them. But this is something that I think if we see who came here today, this is something that people want. This is maybe not everybody yet, but the leadership certainly does recognize the importance of this thing. So let's move with that positive thing. Now, the one thing I want to do is quickly go through some of these things here. We should all take a picture of all of us together. I forgot to do the picture this morning, but let's take a picture of everybody hanging out together. And let's just quickly go through, where did it start? Does it start there? Fair trade diamonds trickle up, go here, okay. Okay, so let's see. Communicate with wholesalers, communicate with retailers, more training, more education, products level certification, say this specific ring of diamond, create differentiated categories of goods and people, know who your customers are, involve and contribute solutions. So people all have to get involved, I guess. Organizations, there's a lot of organizations, we need to recognize them, maybe bring them together. Everyone do your best where you are. So it's not one, that's it. It's not a zero-sum game. It's an evolution. You're trying, you're moving forward. Educate yourself ahead of consumers, one step ahead of the consumer, like you're preparing the coursework, one course ahead of your students. Jewelers helping jewelers, very important organization that can be a voice. And it's all coming from the people. It's up stuff. It's not tell them what to do. No, it's coming from the bottom up. That's very valuable in today's world. Next one is over here, too. Fair trade diamonds trickle up down. And I think DDI is definitely onto something with this fair. Helping the miners and diggers need to feed families, understanding the actual impact, not just necessarily government of Botswana solving AIDS and stuff, which is just very good, but also something maybe more intimate, more personal. The diamond initiative, the DDI, Botswana Diamond Source is a country. You know, understanding the country is good, but understanding what sources are and source verification doesn't resolve necessarily where it's cut, how it's cut. You either want to bring the whole product together. Step-by-step instructions for industry. And I think we really do need to obviously think about writing up an article about this, similar to what you put in that little brochure or something, and maybe combining with Patty, other people, you know, really getting more information about what can you do, ideas and things like that. How to make the dots connected from mines to consumers, okay? And you're telling me there's customers, and he's telling me he's making them, and you two guys should be talking, okay? Recycled diamonds, I'm very into that, but now how are you going to say what's going on with them? Do we come up with some ethical guidelines for what is recycled better, and all that? Biggest problem for sourcing ethical diamonds, consumers willing to pay, and this is something we're going to have to find out. I think we have to market it. You're not going to get people to, oh, no one wants to pay more, but you never sold them about it. You know? But if we sell them on the idea that it's better, we're there. This is 3, document a story to tell the whole journey of how the piece came together. That's very particular, it's very personal, it's very, how should I say, you know, specific jewelers could do this, but I don't know that large jewelers can do this. Maybe they can. I know that Sarin is pushing that as a point of sale discussion. Here, this is your story, this is your diamond. I know Jay wanted to do mines to market, whatever. How many people care enough to be here to discuss this issue with JCK? And you know, there's always going to be leaders. Once you can make more money selling ethical diamonds and ethical jewelry, don't worry, everybody will be on board. But the leaders are always the leaders, and even the followers are very important. And 30 people isn't nobody. And we keep doing this consistently. And I think we have these other groups and do better than we're doing here. And I think we're going to be okay. There's a lot happening. Many grassroots organizations trying to make a difference. Rapaport Media should write about this, yes. We have to pull this together, Robbie, and list all these different organizations and what they do. And I think we have a fair trade issue now doing something, but I don't know. Where do we go from here? That's a good question. Where do we go from here? There's other organizations, other groups. Maybe we have to find some way to create a WhatsApp group, you know, and let everybody, but then I want Jewelers for Jewelers to do the WhatsApp group. I want other people to do stuff, not Rapaport to do stuff, okay? Because it has to be beyond Rapaport. It's got to transcend us, okay? Strategy saving blessings will come. That's nice. Halo effect. It's got to be real. Authenticity of what we're saying and what we're doing. That's 3. 4, stories are important. I personally believe this is really great. If you've got stories, you sit down with someone, you tell them a story, they'll buy from you. Literally. If you got a story and you're honest and it's authentic, it just is a beautiful thing. But not just a brochure and a pamphlet, which is also good, but something more intimate, something more connecting. We lost the diamond in the cave, fine. Don't just go where the light is, go into the difficult areas, okay? Create, put together address to point to solve answers to a problem. That's a general statement, but we really need to think about what can we do to make ethical jewelry go to the consumer. I think RJC did a great job B2B. Now we've got to start thinking B2C. How does that work? And it can work many different ways. There is no one solution. And we're not putting values on things. We're thinking about how do we take all these diverse, you got a guy like Mickey Leon, you got the head of RJC here, you got the Bear, you got, I'm supposed to be someone from the Bears ring usually, but you got someone from GIA, you got all these different people coming from different places. How do we pull this together and think about an answer? No, Rapaport show is not the best on the strip. Okay, it's a funny one. I hear they have shows with really great people, comedians, dancing girls, whatever. Jay confirms the source on the search. That is very good. Great. Congratulations. Published paper guides, Tanzanian, this and stuff, fine, that Jay does. But we need to think about where we go further. 5 and 6. Okay. 5. That's 5. 5's the end. So involved in Sierra, I think that we can look at success stories like Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is going through a hell of a difficult time now. I hope that the people there will be better, that they should do okay. We should note that. Small diggers, and there's lots of small diggers. We did fair trade jewelry at the show a couple of years ago from Africa. We did all kinds of things. So I think we have to start pulling together these different things of people who are interested in small diggers, although it's the most difficult problem. That's really deep in the cave. Should we have a 5th C? And the 5th C I'm talking about is the idea that this is a product which is, C is the wrong letter, but socially responsible. You know, is socially responsible part of our product definition? And I think it should be, and I think it will be. So when someone goes, it's okay. What's your, what's your color, clarity? What's its social responsibility level? And I think that needs to be graded because there's not one grade of social responsibility. There could be sorts, you know which mine it came from, you know where it was cut, and maybe you know where it's cut. So we need to be, and maybe RJC wants to look at that too and say, what are the different levels of ethical sourcing, ethical responsibility? You have your baseline, you know, this is, you know, non-evil, you know, that's fine. But now, can we have aspirational standards that take us to a higher level? And diamond is an emotional thing. And as more we sell emotion, the more benefit and added value we'll get from social responsibility. So if we're just selling the transactional product, who cares? But if we're selling the story of the product, which is being to be, and I think that consumers want an emotional product. That's what they want. Now, we might be selling them what they want because they don't know what they want, but we got to sell them. So your point over there was, you know, tell them, show them, guide them. That's really important. What was here? 6. We are moving. It's got to start somewhere. You know, to process incremental improvements, and there's always got to be leaders. And if you have a story, you know, people will buy. So I think that was kind of what we talked about today. Again, we don't do this every week. We have to try to think about how we can pull people together and talk about this some more, and maybe move it to electronic, you know, media and get more people. And I think that group, what's it called? The one that you had, what's it called? That group, Patty? Which one? The one that was in New York, and maybe.
It's called the Jewelry Industry Summit.
And how is that group doing?
They just had a meeting in Tucson.
Good.
And there are a number of projects that the groups are working on.
So let's support that. I know that they have this whole thingamajig going on and the DDI and stuff. I think what we have to start doing is kind of coalescing ourselves, you know, moving ourselves into this direction where we're trying to bring these groups together so there's some commonality. All right, let's take a picture. If anyone wants to say anything.
Stand behind Martin.
Well, we'll stand with Martin, not behind. Let's all stand. One day I'll get a crown. Now, are those synthetic diamonds in your crown, or what are they? No. Let's all kind of get together over here. And stand sideways, they can get us in the picture. We do have a photographer here, so we'll get it all. Let's all be together here. Yeah, let's get this out of the way. And if you stand sideways, unless you're very fast. Here we go, and tall people in back. Come on, let's go, everybody. Let's get everybody in here. He's hiding in the back there. He's kind of tall. Come forward, let's go. Hey, guys, let's go. Come on, everybody in the picture. I was going to do a picture this morning with everybody, but they said it would break the stage. Yeah, but we said, come on, everybody get in here. Let's go. Lunch awaits.
You're in the back, come on down to the end, I can't see you back there.
All right, let's go get everybody in here.
Thank you. Everybody give me a thumbs up.
Hey!
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Show on the strip. And it was the price of admission.
Yeah, the price of admission was the best, maybe. But time is also valuable. Thank you. You guys should talk a little more, get people to talk and kind of communicate.
Too much talking.
Yeah, too much talking, not enough doing, yeah. And let's take a picture. Take a picture.